As you can see, I'm kneeling on the floor right now because this is the vantage point of an audience member. A couple days ago, I decided that I wanted to design a theoretical set from scratch, just for you to practice your white model making on. So I picked the play The Odd Couple and did some draftings, did some elevation, and built a model in one afternoon. So come join me and you can do the same. Let's talk a little bit about the tools that we're going to need for this week's project. You want your X-Acto knife with number 11 blades, removable. Number 11 blades. Super 77 spray adhesive. Eileen's quick dry tacky glue. A metal straight edge ruler. Pencil. I'm using Strathmore Bristol, but you can use any single ply Bristol that's on our supply list. And lastly, the model box that we built last week. Let's start model making. I forgot, 2 other materials that I'm going to use for this project are some 1/8 inch by 1/4 inch balsa wood and white acrylic gesso, or white paint would work. And also, if you can find it, get some 1/8 by 1/16 inch balsa wood. You're not going to need very much. Welcome to my drafting table. Now, usually when I do a very simple white model, I'll start with a hand-drawn ground plan of the show, and also some hand-drawn, very quick elevations, which I can then scan into my computer and print out copies of them on my printer. Here's my ground plan that we're going to be making this model from. As you can see, it's pretty clean and pretty well figured out. But these are all the earlier versions that I did where I was trying to figure out wall spacing, placement of doors, sight lines, and all of that. Here's another earlier version. I was sort of playing with stage space here. And once I felt really confident about it, I put another piece of paper down and did this sort of final arrangement. And then from that, I drew a set of quick elevations. Now, as you can see, I didn't spend a tremendous amount of time. I really just wanted to get the basic ideas in there so that when we go to make the model, we don't even have to think about it. Once I've used my scanner to get them into the computer, I have them in Photoshop now. And so this just allows me to kind of figure out spacing on the page and edit things a little bit, clean it up so that I can very easily just print out as many copies as I want and use in a model. Typically when I make a model, I tend to build my walls out of 3 or 4 ply Bristol. It just gives them a little bit more rigidity and enables them to stand up. You can see in the back here that I've added some balsa wood supports just to keep everything really flat. Of course, 3 and 4 ply Bristol board is a bit more expensive. So for the purposes of this class, we're going to use single ply Bristol board that you can buy in that pad. And we're going to take 2 pieces and using spray adhesive, stick them together. This will give us a little bit more rigidity for the walls. I've got my printed elevations ready here. Now what I'm going to do is break this up into parts that I can easily stick down on that Bristol board and cut up. Here we are outside in our dedicated spray area / barbecue table. I'm going to put a nice, light, even coat on both sides of my Bristol board. Stick them together. Everything's blowing away. I'm going to do the same step with my walls. Time to take it all inside. Now, I have all those prints attached to this double ply piece of Bristol board. I'm going to repeat the same step for some more of the walls. Basically, I want to make copies of the doors that are on stage and the windows. This will help us later on, you'll see. Also, I printed up a copy of my ground plan so that I can cut that out and place all my walls on top of it. I've also printed out an idea for the backdrop that goes outside the windows. This is actually from an image from JC Backings, which rents out a lot of these sort of photorealistic backings that go outside windows on film and TV sets. I've sucked all the color out of this in Adobe Photoshop and lightened the image a bit so that it fits the color scheme of our white model, which is monochromatic. Once everything is dry, I'm going to start cutting things out. Here we go. Now, for the ground plan, what I think I'm going to do is give it a very clean perimeter cut and try to include all the elements that are part of my set. I'm going to start back here and we'll include that backdrop as a part of it. As we did when we were cutting foam core. You kind of want 2, maybe 3 cuts to get through these 2 layers of material. Actually, I think I'm going to cut that like that. It just gives us a nice, easy base to attach everything down to, so you have like one sort of solid white model that you can drop into your model box. As you can see here, we can just take our floor, plug it right in there. A nice start. Our next step will be to start cutting out walls that we attach to the 2-ply of Bristol board. Let's talk about how we can get the correct amount of depth in our model. Now we know that door casings have a thickness to them. They do in our ground plan. We also know that a transom tends to sit further back in the opening in both of these transoms. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out around this perimeter. We're going to leave the bar and we're going to cut the entire transom out and just get rid of it. We'll do the same thing here. Now, because this door opens into the room, it's in the front of the casing. So I'm actually going to leave this door as part of it, because I think what I want to do is sort of score it along the hinge, and that gives us the opportunity to sort of fold the door open in our model. But we'll keep this transom bar here. We'll cut the entire transom out, just scrap it. Now, we've gotten the transoms cut out, we've gotten that opening cut out. What I want to do with this door, because it opens into the room, is I'm going to cut it up the side that's not hinged and cut it across the top. Tie it across the top. So you can see it's cut like it's going to open. Now what I want to do is I'm going to make a quick score mark on the bottom, right there. So that along the back, I can simply score my material. You don't want to cut all the way through, just part way through, just enough so that the top layer of the Bristol board has some give to it. And that way, you can simply bend your material. And now that door looks like it opens into the room. It actually helps the wall stand up too. I've got my 1/8 by 1/16 balsa wood here. It's been pre-primed with white gesso. What I'm going to do is measure it, cut it, and wrap it around both of these doorways. I'm also going to put a strip across the back of the transom bar. So now I've got my sides framed up. I've actually decided that I'm going to use this larger balsa wood, which is 1/8 by 1/4, to connect the top headers back here. But I'm just going to cut it off right there and there. Now remember, you can also use a little miter box if you're more comfortable cutting your balsa wood that way. That's just how I like to do it. Come on, glue. I'm going to lay that across. Now you can see that because this is 1/8 inch deep and these are 1/8 inch deep, this should all match up in height. When you look at it from the front, your door frame now has depth to it. But we're not done yet. We still need to make the little pieces to go across those transom bars. Now, we've achieved the proper depth and thickness for these openings. I'm going to repeat that same process for the windows, and what I'm going to cut out is right up to the edge of the window casing, right up to that edge, and right up to the window sill, right to there, and right to the underside of that casing. So we're just going to get rid of these two window parts. And now we're going to repeat the same sort of steps that we did on the other wall with the doors, where we're going to make sure that the exterior of each one of these windows is properly furred out or wrapped in balsa wood. Now we have both of these walls with framed out openings. Now remember when we pasted up an extra copy on single ply Bristol? This is the reason that we were doing that. What we're going to do is make transoms that we can stick to the back of those openings and windows that we can stick to the back of the openings. My little trick is to make sure that we cut out the perimeter of that so that it's larger than the actual piece. That way, when we go to attach it to the balsa wood, there's enough material there to stick to it. So I'm going to cut my windows up to about that line. And only from here to here is going to show, and the rest of the window is going to have glue on it to stick it to the balsa wood. I do find that it's easiest to cut out things like window openings before I cut out the entire perimeter, because the material is stronger when it's all on this one big piece. So first, we're going to cut out the window openings, the parts here that are marked with X. Now that we've got our window parts cut out, we can simply glue them in the back of those window jambs. And look at that, we get all that added depth. I'm going to repeat the same process when it comes to cutting out these transoms for those two openings. I'm going to start by cutting out the inner profiles of each opening and popping them out, and then I will cut a little bit past where the actual part is so that there's something to stick to the balsa wood. Alright, well now that we've made proper considerations for the depth of these two things, and I'm not really planning to have the kitchen door or any of the other doors be open in this model, we can start using our printed ground plan to start joining walls together and gluing them at their corners. So I'll start with the window. I know that's going to go right there. And I can just use this wall here. We can see it can join right there. So I want to put a nice bead of glue right in that corner. Clean it up a little bit with your finger just to keep it from smearing all over the wall. Holding it back in place. Just going to push the two together and hold it. Now just sit there for a second and let the glue dry. Just be patient. I just call it a grue. How gruesome of me. Just take a moment to breathe. Watch the glue dry. It's so boring. The window's a little top heavy, isn't it? It'll be okay once we attach it to all the other parts. So I'm going to repeat that process with all of the corners. And when I come to a 90-degree corner like this, I'm actually going to run a piece of balsa wood behind it to strengthen it. Now I've got the other side glued up over there. I'm waiting for that to dry a little bit, so I'm going to move to stage 1 and do the same process. I'm going to connect these corners, and I'm going to add this return over here with this kitchen door in it. Now the two halves of my set are glued and ready to be joined together. And what I like to do is take a piece of balsa wood and glue it into this outside corner to help give that corner more strength. I'm also going to repeat that in these corners here and here for the low return walls. Now I've placed my model so far in my theater box, just to check interactions with the proscenium, and just see how everything is looking from an audience perspective. I'm not done yet though, because I want to make the little backings that we can see through our openings off stage, the brick wall that's going to be outside the window here, and also the drop with the buildings. Once I do all of that, we'll be pretty much done, except for furniture, which we're not covering in this section. So, for the backings, we're going to use the same method that we just used to join walls together on the main set. I didn't go too crazy with dimension or anything like that on these, because we just need to be able to see it through the doors and see if this set really works. Okay, now we've got our white model in our theater. We can easily see it from all the sight lines. You see if all of our masking is covered. We have 2 more steps to make here. We need to put in the backdrop that's behind the windows, and I also want to make a border so that we can mask to the top of this set so that the space above the set doesn't look so dead and empty. So now here we have the drop. This is pasted up to a single ply Bristol board. Over here on some other Bristol board, I've drawn out 2 right triangles. I'm going to cut those out, and those will become jacks to sort of support that drop so that it's just freestanding. Okay, well now we've got the drop in place. But as you can see, it's a bit tall, and we can see it above the top of the window. Now it's important in this design that the drop be a little bit taller than the walls, because when you sit down close in the audience, you can see up through the window, and we don't want to see the top of that drop. So I actually calculated that size based upon the window sightline I thought I was going to be dealing with. What will help us for a final step will be to create a border. A piece of black masking that we can hang somewhere in this space to help clamp down on the top of the set and effectively mask all this dead space up above. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to cut a 16-foot tall and 1/4-inch scale piece of this. This is black foam core. I actually don't have any mat board in my studio because I've not had to build a model all year. So for this project, we're going to use black foam core. So I've cut a piece of balsa wood. It's the correct length to sit on the rails on top of the model box. Now what I'm going to do, take my border, and I'm really going to try to trim it to the top of the set. Maybe just like a little bit above the top of the set. That looks about right. I'm making a couple marks on my wood. Now I'm going to take my border, drop it in, just in case you want to see what I did. I just glued it straight to the board. And then I kind of visually aligned it so that everything was level and flush with the top of the set. Now this isn't true of every single border trim that you'll do, but for this kind of box set, I really do prefer to sort of clamp down on the vertical space above the set and really control what the audience is seeing.